Namaha Bhavtam Sarvesham Hartam Swagatam. Welcome back to this channel Sanskrit Sopanam. I hope you're doing great. I'm also good. And continuing in a series learning Sanskrit through Gita, today we will decode 25th shloka from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And again, what does the shloka say and how we can decode it through the lens of Sanskrit grammar and vocabulary. Without wasting any more time, let's start the video and find it out. Okay, so this is the shloka that we have today. Let me go through the shloka once. Avyakto yamachintyo yamavikaryo yamuchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Okay, so this is the shloka and this here is the Sandhi Vichcheda version of the shloka. So these are all these different words. Avyaktaha, ayam, then achintyaha ayam, then avikaryah ayam, and then uchyate. And then you can see that at all these three places, a same sandhi is happening, the ukara sandhi. That if after an aha, you have a riswa a. So this is what you get. So that is what is happening. Avyaktaha ayam, so avyaktoyam. So this a is hiding behind this avagraha chinna. Okay, and the same sandhi is happening between these two words and between these two words. So this is how all these different words are combining into a seemingly single word using the ukara utva sandhi. And then in the second line, you can see there is a jashtu sandhi that is happening here. This ta, this is changing into the da, jashtu sandhi. So tasmat evam, this is changing into tasmad evam. Okay. And then we can also spot a vriddhi sandhi that is happening here. So viditva enam, this is viditvainam. So this is a vriddhi sandhi. And in the end, you have a dirgha sandhi. So na anushochitum, so it is na anushochitum. Okay. And then this is just combining with the adjacent word. So nanushochitum arhasi. Okay, and this is how before decoding the shloka, we separate all the individual words present in the Sanskrit verse. And as always, you have a PDF sheet that you can download from the link in the description box. That PDF sheet has all the sandhi details and word by word breakdown of complete shloka. So do download that PDF sheet. It is for your own self-practice. We will directly jump on to the decoding of the shloka now. Okay, and now we are starting the decoding with a kriya pada. So uchyate, which translates as is said. Okay, so the reason I'm writing it like this, is said, is because this is a karmani form. It is a passive voice verb form. Because see, this form is coming from the dhatu, the verbal root vach. And vach dhatu means to speak, to say. And this is the form here. In present tense, that is lat lakara in Sanskrit, third person. That is some third person did the action and singular, ek vachanam. So vach dhatu in these three properties, if you'll check in the Ashtadhyayi, so this is the form you will find, vakti. And this vakti is the correct form, but this is the active voice form. That this vakti is the more commonly used, the kartari prayoga form. Okay. But this uchyate, this is also the same verbal root, the same properties, but this is the karmani form. Okay. That tells us that wherever this kriya pada is being used, that entire structure, that entire sentence is meant in a passive voice, in a karmani prayoga form. Okay. So that is the difference. This vakti, if this vakti was there, so I would have written it as that he says. He, some third person says or speaks. But since it is a karmani prayoga, so I am writing it like this. Is said, is spoken. So in that sense. Okay, and now if we'll move on. So we are asking a question that kaha. So the response we get is ayam uchyate. Ayam. Ayam translates as this. That this is said to be whatever we'll decode further in the shloka. And this we know from the context of this shloka and all the shlokas that we are coming through, that this is pointing towards the implicit use of self, the Atman, the soul. Because we are talking about the self from the past few shlokas. This is the theme here. So with this, I actually mean this self. Okay, this Atma, this soul. So we all know that this ayam is coming from the Pratipadika idam. Okay, and this idam, it is a sarvanama. It is a pronoun that translates as this. And this ayam is the prathama vibhakti. It is the first word case singular form. So we have used this ayam quite often. But pay attention to this one point, that this ayam here, this ayam is not the karta. It is not the karta of the kriya, uchyate. No, this ayam, this is rather the karma of the kriya. And why this is the karma? Because this kriya is the karmani form. It is the passive voice construction. And in passive voice construction, we know that the karma is in the prathama vibhakti. So this ayam is the karma of this kriya. So just pay attention to this point, because ayam, whenever we see this form, usually the prathama vibhakti is the karta of the kriya. But here, since this is the passive voice construction, so this ayam, this self, is the object of this kriya. So just be clear about this point. Okay, and for those who are slightly confused now, see, let me take a very simple example. Suppose a Sanskrit sentence is balakaha vedan pathati. So this sentence means the boy balakaha pathati, he reads. And what does he read? So Vedan. That is he reads the Vedas. So see, Balaka here is the Karta. Vedan is the Karma and Patati is the Kriya. And this is a normal active voice construction, the Kartari Prayoga. And if I write this same sentence in passive voice, the Karmani Prayoga, so notice the changes. Balakena Vedaha Pathyate. So what happened is Balakaha of Kartari Prayoga became Balakena. So in passive voice, the Karta, it comes in Tritiya Vibhakti, as you can see. And Balakaha Vedan. And here what we are saying? Balakena Vedaha. So what is happening? The objects of Kartari Prayoga that are in Dvitiya Vibhakti, in passive voice, the object comes in Prathama Vibhakti, Vedaha. So Karta became in Tritiya Vibhakti, the Karma became in Prathama Vibhakti, and the Kriya also. In Kartari Prayoga, the Kriya is Kartari form, Pathati. But in Karmani Prayoga, in passive voice, the Kriya also is in passive form, Pathyate. So these are the changes that happen from the usual active voice Kartari Prayoga to passive voice Karmani Prayoga. Okay, and the same thing we saw here, that Uchyate, this is the Karmani Kriya, and this Ayam in Prathama Vibhakti, this is the Karma of this Kriya. Okay, because the entire construction is the passive voice Karmani Prayoga. But anyways, we'll move on, and I'm asking that this self is said to be something. So this self is said to be what? That Ayam Avyaktaha, Achintyaha, and Avikarya Uchyate. Where Avyaktaha, so this means unmanifest. Okay, Vyakta, something that is Vyakta, is manifested. So Avyakta, something that is unmanifest. And then we have this word Achintya. So Chintya means something that should be thought about, something that is worthy of thinking. And Achintya, so something that is unthinkable or something that is incomprehensible. Okay, in that sense. And then you have Avikarya. So vikar means some change, some modification. And vikarya, this will mean that worthy of modification or something that can be modified. And so if you negate it, avikarya, so something that cannot be changed, something that is unchangeable or something that is immutable. Okay, and since these are describing this ayam, so they are also all in the Prathama Vibhakti Ekvachanam form. And this entire sentence becomes that this self is said to be unmanifest. This self is said to be incomprehensible and this self is said to be immutable. This is the meaning of this line. Okay, so I hope this line is clear. Let us move on now. And now I am asking a question that Atkim. Atkim, this is a Sanskrit expression when we want to say that so what. We ask this in English that okay, so what. So in that sense. And the response I get is enam viditva. So let us see this word first, viditva. So viditva, this is a kridanta. And kridantas are what? So a dhatu, in this case vid dhatu, that means to know, to understand. So a dhatu, a verbal root, is being modified using a krit pratyay, and the pratyay here is twa pratyay. Okay, a very common pratyay that we so often use. Twa pratyay is used in the sense after doing the whatever the kriya is. So vid means to know, and if I modify this dhatu using this twa pratyay, so I get viditva, that means after knowing. Okay, or having known. We can just rephrase it as having known. And then having known what? So having known enam. And enam again coming from the same sarvanam pratipadika idam. But this enam is in the dutiya vibhakti form. So second word case singular form enam. Why? Because this enam is acting like a karma of this kridanta. That having known this. Basically meaning that having known this self. Okay, having known this atma. So interestingly note that ayam and enam, both of these sarvanama, they are in different vibhakti. Ayam is in the prathama vibhakti form, enam, this is in the dutiya vibhakti form. But both of them are acting like an object of their kriya. Enam is the object of this kridanta, that having known this self, and ayam was also the object of this karmani kriya uchyate. Okay, so based on difference in prayoga, the kartari prayoga, the karmani prayoga, ayam and enam both are representing the karma of the associated kriya. So something interesting to note. Then I'm asking the question that okay, having known this self, how? For which I get the response that enam evam viditva. Evam, this is an indeclinable, it is an avyay, which means as such. Okay, this evam, we already see this evam a lot of time in the meaning this way, that evam karoti. So do it this way. So this is a very common use of evam, but in the context of the shloka, this means as such. By which Krishna is saying, so the way I have just described the self, Having known this self as such, after completely realizing this self, the nature of this self as such, as the way I just described. So this is what Krishna is implying by this evam, that enam evam viditva. Okay, so I hope this is clear. And now he continues and say, na arhasi. Okay, so this arhasi is another kriya pada, and this arhasi means that you are eligible, you are qualified. Because this kriya pada is coming from the dhatu arha dhatu. Arha dhatu means to be eligible for something, to be worthy of something. And the form here is the present tense lat lakara, second person, that is madhyama purush. That Krishna he is directly speaking to, of course, Arjuna. So this action is basically associated to Arjuna, the direct listener. That is why second person madhyama purush and singular ekvachanam. So arha dhatu in these properties become arhasi, that you are qualified, you are eligible for. But since this kriya pada is preceded by this na, so the meaning is negated here, that you are not qualified, na arhasi. Okay, so this is what Krishna is saying to Arjuna. But now the question is that na arhasi kim kartum? That Arjuna, you are not qualified to do what? Kim kartum? And for that Krishna completes the sentence as anushochitum na arhasi. And anushochitum means to grieve. Okay, because this anushochitum is also a kridanta. So the dhatu here is shuch dhatu. Shuch dhatu means to grieve. Okay, to grieve over something, to lament something in that sense. And since this is the kridanta, so this dhatu is being modified by some krit pratyay. The pratyay here is tumun pratyay. Okay, and we know we use tumun pratyay when we want to convey the meaning to do the action. Okay, to do the action, for doing the action in that sense. So shuch dhatu, when modified by tumun pratyay, we get this kridanta shochitum. Okay, and since here it is anushochitum, so we already know that anu here is the upsarga, it is the prefix. Okay, and this anu prefix basically gives the feeling of the action being done repeatedly, continuously. And as we saw in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that Arjuna is in continuous mood of dejection, of sorrow. So that perpetual mood, that continuous running mood of Arjuna is being portrayed here by using this upsarga, that anushochitum. And now this entire sentence will mean that enam evam viditva, that after knowing this self as such, as the way I just described to you, Arjuna, anushochitum na arhasi, that you are not qualified to anushochitum, to grieve. That once you have understood the true nature of self, that you are not eligible to grieve anymore, because again you have realized the nature of the self. That is what Krishna is trying to convey to Arjuna. Okay, so I hope all these words are clear. See, both this viditva and anushochitum, both of them are kridanta, and both of them are indeclinable, avyaya now. Because we know that whenever any dhatu are modified using these three krit pratyay, that if dhatu is modified using lep pratyay or twa pratyay or tumun pratyay, so whatever kridanta is formed, that kridanta is a indeclinable, it is an avyay. Okay, so just reminding this point again, because most of the kridanta, they become an adjective. And then whatever noun they are qualifying, they change their form based on that noun. But with these three pratyay, the end result is a indeclinable avyay. Okay, so just reminding this point, I hope every one of you know this point by now. Okay, but now let us see the anvay along with the translation, the anuvada. See this I am. So in the first line, you will find this I am thrice. So I am here, then here I am, then here also. So this I am is just representing that same thing, that this self. They are just repeating that I am avyakta, this self is unmanifest. I am achintya, this self is incomprehensible. So Krishna has just repeated the use of this sarvanama. Okay, so I've missed out this in Anvaya, but consider that here and here also you have this same I am. Okay, so anyways, the translation says that I am uchyate, that the self is said to be what? So avyaktaha, unmanifest, achintya, incomprehensible, and avikaryaha, immutable. Okay, so with this first line, Krishna first again reiterates the true nature of the self, and then he continues and says that tasmat, this tasmat again is a indeclinable, and this simply means therefore. Okay, so Krishna says that tasmat, therefore, enam evam viditva, having known the self as such, na arhasi, you are not qualified. And not qualified to do what? So anushochitum, that you are not qualified to grieve. Okay, basically Krishna means that you should not grieve. And you should not grieve over what? So you should not grieve about the status of this war, the battle that you have to fight now. So don't grieve over this. Okay, this is the entire translation of the shloka. Okay, and again with this shloka, Krishna has beautifully expressed the true nature of self as something that is without any conditioning, without any upadhi. Because when Krishna says that the self is unmanifest, so who do we consider manifest? something is considered manifest if we can perceive it through our senses, through our sense organs, right? And if something is very subtle, then even our sense organs, they fail to perceive it. Because see, if we talk about the gross elements, the five elements, so the way we can perceive the earth element, so the same way we cannot perceive, say, fire element, which is subtler than the earth element. You cannot taste the fire element. Okay, you can see it through your eyes, but you cannot taste it. Okay, in that sense, even more subtler is the space element, and we cannot perceive it through our eyes. We cannot perceive it through our ears. So as the elements, they keep on getting more subtler and subtler, they become very difficult for our five sense organs to perceive them. And then this self, this Atma, this is the cause of everything. So this is the most subtlest element, most subtlest thing out there. Obviously, our five sense organs, they fail to perceive it. So that is why that is considered as unmanifest, because our five sense organs cannot perceive it. The self is beyond our five sense organs. So saying unmanifest, he negates the conditioning of these five sense organs. And then he says it is achintaya, it is incomprehensible. That means that the mind cannot think about it and the intellect cannot comprehend it. Again, see, first he negated all the conditioning of sense organs, then he also negated the conditioning of mind and intellect, proving to us that the self is beyond the mind, it is beyond the intellect. That is why it is incomprehensible. And then lastly, he says that it is immutable, that it cannot be changed. So, how beautifully Krishna has removed all the conditionings and has shown us he has repeated this point in so many previous shlokas also. Again, he has reiterated it and he has shown us that the self is without any conditioning of any sort. It is without any upadhi. It is that pure truth, that pure existence, that pure consciousness, that existence, consciousness, bliss. So he's again repeating this point. And then Krishna is urging Arjuna to understand, to realize the self as such. And if you have realized the self as such, then you are not eligible anymore to grieve over these petty things, to grieve over the state of war, to grieve over that who is killing, who is getting killed, all these things, because you are now identifying with the true nature of the self. So that is what Krishna is urging Arjuna to see. The same theme, again, we have covered in so many previous shlokas, but this repetition is very necessary because these are very subtle things to understand. These are not difficult. There is a difference between something that is difficult and something that is subtle. If something is difficult, so no matter how much you think about it, you cannot understand it if you don't know the related concepts of it. But if something is subtle, that even though at first you may not able to understand it, but that is the thing with things that are subtle, that if you contemplate over it, if you contemplate and repetitively, if you contemplate over it, then eventually that truth that dawns upon us. So all these things, they are very subtle in nature, because the Atman, the Brahman, that is the subtlest of anything. So that is why he is again and again making these same points, repeating its point. So I hope this entire import of the shloka is clear, and grammatically also I hope everything was clear. Again, to assist you, there is a PDF sheet you can download from the link in the description box. I'll meet you in another video with another shloka. Until then, stay awesome, stay happy, keep learning Sanskrit. Vayam punha milamaha. Dhanyavad.